Alright everyone, we've got another wave of polling coming out, and it seemingly coincides with what was being polled before a few days ago, which is that Biden's lead in the battleground states has now fundamentally collapsed. Again, you can't do anything with a single poll, which is why when you get like a CNN poll says Trump is 10 points behind, okay, maybe he is. He could also be 10 points ahead. I don't really know what that number means because it's not aggregated. When you have 2 or 3 polls, it becomes a little bit easier to judge. The more polling points you have within a short period of time, the more accurate your number will tend to be as well. Aggregated polling, therefore, can be valuable. You can at least approximate the real number that you're looking for. You can certainly tell the direction of things. You can kind of tell, in some cases, roughly the velocity of that trajectory. Whether it's stable, a candidate's rising or falling, an idea is more or less popular, you can gauge that. It's not 100% accurate. You'll always have a swing in the final results, and you can never guess exactly which direction it'll be in. If I had to guess, I would say Trump is going to get a 3-point bounce in the final results from whatever the polling is, because there's a huge enthusiasm gap. It was 2.2 in the last election. Based on the enthusiasm differential, at least perceived, I would say 3 points, or thereabouts. 2.5 to 3.5. Anywhere in that range probably gives him the election, by the way. It certainly, if we look at the polls here, would tip multiple states in his direction. Minnesota's now in play. Minnesota went blue in the last election. That would be a pickup for Trump. If he manages to hold on to the territory he already gained last year, more or less, and grabs up Minnesota, he has won the election. The big battlegrounds, there's definitely movement as well towards being blue in parts of the country. Texas will be closer than it was, although it will go for Trump. Arizona will probably go for Trump, but again, there has been movement. The southwest of this country and the western states are becoming more blue. The northeastern states, Maine, New Hampshire, even to an extent after Bernie's double schlonging, the state of Vermont, believe it or not, which has historically been one of the most blue states of all, and then certainly the Lakes region, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and so forth. These areas of the country are becoming more red. They're going more Republican. Overall, even if the Democrats were to turn Texas into a lean blue state, as long as the Republicans can hold up that upper Midwest, Great Lakes region, it'd be about the same electoral map as before because the electoral shift would be about even. The states gained and the states lost for each side would be the same. It's still close to a 50-50 proposition. In this election, based on the current trajectory, the current numbers that we have, with Biden's in some cases double-digit battleground state lead dwindling to a point or two in some states, and even showing Trump ahead now in multiple states. Again, Minnesota, Wisconsin looks like it will stay for Trump. If he continues to rise in support, and the polls naturally narrow towards Election Day, which they tend to, and if Trump proceeds to win at the debates, more or less, or at least do fairly well, I would say the election will easily go for Trump. Now, this isn't certain. Could start moving in the other direction. You gotta understand, nothing's new under the sun. You could have a massive secondary wave, a mutated version of coronavirus that really is massively deadly breaks out, and people start dropping like flies, necessitating, complete lockdown for 6 months that cripples the economy and causes a depression. That would change the trajectory of the election. And in what manner, we're not exactly sure. A war could break out. You could have a nuclear conflict, a Cuban Missile Crisis standoff. You could have doomsday. An asteroid could hit Washington, D.C. and wipe all the politicians out. You won't need to drain the swamp anymore. It'll be a blistering crater at that point. But with Biden's lead fundamentally evaporating, it looks like at least 2 states are in play now that really weren't before. One of them potentially, and no one's really looking at it, but they probably should, is Oregon. The city of Portland is suffering massive numbers of riots. If we look at Minnesota, the only reason I can think of, because it's certainly not demographics, that all of a sudden Trump would be 2 or 3 points higher than he was in 2016, despite his polling being lower at the moment, the only reason I can think of is the riots. Well, that represents that represents, 100,000 votes or so? Maybe, something along that order? 50,000, 100,000? If you were to see that, in some of these other states, yes, definitely you could see Oregon become an in-play state. It's been fairly blue for a number of elections. But the Pacific Northwest wasn't solidly blue even a few cycles ago. It leaned blue, but it wasn't reliably so. A candidate that was weak facing a strong Republican opponent could have had a problem there. It's the same as Arizona is today. Arizona leans red, but it is in play. Certainly more than in the last election. My belief now is that Trump might be at 45 at the first debate. He rises to 46.5 by winning all three by at least a reasonable margin, and he could land a knockout. This puts him perilously close already to the mark he needs to be at. Natural polling gap closing towards the election, which inevitably happens among the late last-minute deciders, and the enthusiasm differential, that gives Trump maybe 50. He could end up actually winning the popular vote in this election. It is possible for that to happen. Is it likely? It depends. It looks like rural and small town and suburban turnout for Trump is going to be sky high. He has literally more approval than any other modern president in party. He is the most popular in-party incumbent that we've ever seen. He's the most popular Republican since Ronald Reagan in party, and in fact is several points ahead of where Reagan was. The enthusiasm level is off the charts. I've got reports coming in, and this is one fringe benefit of having a large audience. I'm getting reports from people all over the U.S., including people that live in blue states and places that went for Hillary, saying, well, there's a million Trump lawn signs up, and I haven't seen jack shit for Biden. That's the other thing. Biden's lack of enthusiasm is more palpable than Trump's presence of enthusiasm. Yes, Trump in party is very popular. Among independents, though, it's really more about them disliking Joe Biden. And if Joe Biden shows the nation how demented he is at the debates so that the legacy media can't really spin, analyze, or cover it up, that's that. Game, set, match. And that's sort of what I'm relying on happening. I don't expect, again, I give about a 20% chance that Biden fumbles up enough to knock himself out of the race at one of the debates. I don't expect, therefore, that to happen. There's an 80% chance it doesn't. But through slow attrition, through a few little mistakes and gaffes here and there, and the inability to use his own 45-year career as a politician as leverage because his career would piss off the entire left wing of the party and cause problems even further with turnout, I'm not seeing how Biden can even survive the debates, even if he does reasonably well by his standards, which basically is he's used as a punching bag for several hours, but ultimately, at the end of the day, he hasn't been knocked off his fucking punching bag string. That's basically his best likelihood. I think if he outperforms expectations, it'll be, well, he didn't fuck up so badly that his campaign is fundamentally over, and CNN will sing his praises. There's a reason, though, why Biden's lead has evaporated so much. It's the riots. It's not the improving economy, although that helps. It's not the improving coronavirus death tolls, although that, again, helps. The death rate now is below 1%. For most demographics, it's below a fraction of a percent. It's becoming a non-issue to the point where the attempts at lockdown in blue states are actually becoming less popular than just opening things up and saying, fuck it. Biden's lead is evaporating, though, mainly because of the rioting going on. And his inability to call out the far-left rioters, and his pandering towards them, in fact, and his direct explicit partnership, and he and his staffers, with BLM, is dead weight around his campaign's neck. And it's funny to see, because it was predictable that would happen. People at first, they were incensed by George Floyd's death, which was due to overdose. The officer in that case will not be found guilty of murder, too. That'll cause, by the way, a second wave of riots at some indeterminate point in the future. People use it as an opportunity to loot. It was predictable that people would riot. I predicted that before it happened. Everyone else did, because we've seen it before. We saw it with Ferguson. We've seen it a million times before. Somebody gets exonerated, having, the legacy media has declared them to be a Nazi, and they killed a black man in self-defense. People go crazy. They got exonerated. People go crazy, whatever. We've seen it before. Dozens of cities started burning, and at first people were sympathetic. Oh, we feel your pain. But then they moved into the suburbs and started harassing people, demanding reparations, saying, give us your wallet, smashing out store windows, burning Wendy's to the ground. Those things aren't popular. The Democrats jumped the gun and immediately jumped aboard the defund the police thing, only to watch the Marxists come out and say, yeah, we're glad that you agree with us at getting rid of the police force. Oh, no, that's not what we're saying, say the Democratic lay people and the neoliberal establishment. We mean, like, diverting some of its funding to social workers. No, 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 say the far leftists, all of which are Biden fans at this point. You can see it on Breadline Tube any day. They ramble constantly. No, 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 we mean get rid of the police. We want Antifa to be the police. Yeah, small town America is not going to go for that, dude. Neither are the suburbs. The problem is that the suburbs and elements even of small town America have leaned in some cases just far enough Democrat to give them multiple states that otherwise would be Republican by default if it weren't for that sort of switch in voting. If you piss off the suburbs, and you piss off Cole County, and you piss off small town America, and you piss off every farmer, and you piss off every police union, and you piss off the military veterans and workers and soldiers, who do you fucking have left? You have a bunch of urban big cities, which are currently being looted and rioted in. Some people have, by the way, can I clear something up here? Some people have talked about the specter of far leftists trying to blockade voting places on election day to try to swing things for Biden. The only places in which they won't get a goddamn hell of a beatdown by local residents for doing that are in big cities that lean heavily blue. In which there's going to be a hidden Trump vote, by the way, as well, because people in those communities are saying, well, I'm a Democrat, but, Wendy's is gone, Kroger's gone, Whole Foods is gone, Starbucks is gone, Target is gone, Macy's is gone, McDonald's is gone. What's left? Fuck it, I'm voting Trump. They've destroyed my community. There will be people who do that on election day. Expect some hundreds of thousands of additional Trump voters in some of the big cities that wouldn't exist at all before. That's about all. Peace out.